out and bring you back in.
Okay.
Hey everyone, this is Tanitria Williams, and we are ready to get started with Minding My Mental Health. Of course, you know what I want you to do. I want you to hashtag and let me know where you're watching from. So, hashtag live if you are watching us live, and hashtag replay if you are watching the replay. I'm so excited to have you all today. I'm going to take a moment to actually share this story before we bring my guests back into the studio. So, again, you guys know I want you to share this to friends and family, to share this to your groups, share this to your story, share, right? Um, Here at I'm just going to take this moment to, here we go. We're sharing. All right. So thank you guys for joining. You know, at Minding My Mental Health, our goal is to tear down the stigma of mental health treatment and to bring awareness into our community about mental health. One of the reasons we do this format the way we do it is because we want everyone to understand the importance and the value of taking care of our mental health. And it doesn't matter how successful you are, we still want you to know that you are it's important that you take care of your mental health. So I'm going to bring on my guest. I'm really excited to have her. And so as she's joining us, I want us to all just welcome her. Hello, Jackie.
Hi, everybody.
So welcome, Miss Jaclyn Washington House. Jaclyn House. I knew her as Jackie Washington from college.
Right.
So, and I was like, oh yes, she's Jaclyn House now. So again, Jackie is a news anchor and a host of a wonderful show, and it's called Good Day in Northwest Arkansas.
Good Day in WA. Yep.
Good Day in WA. So again, we're gonna just welcome Jackie. Jackie, how about you start us off and tell us about yourself, kind of your experience and all of that.
Sure. So thank you so much for having me today and making me actually have this conversation. I interview people all the time, but when people are like, "Can I interview you?" I'm like, "No, no, you
I
can't."
appreciate you coming along.
Right. It's just, like I'm great with like putting people on the spot, but then when it's time for me, I'm like, I don't want to. So thank you actually for making me do this because this is actually really, really good. But I am here in Northwest Arkansas, Rogers. I live in Rogers specifically, but I've lived in Northwest Arkansas for over 25 years. Actually, I came here to the U of A and just never left. I always tell people because I'm originally from the Chicagoland area, and I always tell people, my mom's like, "You just went to Arkansas, you never came back." So I did meet my
You were
husband.
supposed to come back, Jackie.
I guess, but I did meet my husband here in college, and so we stayed in the area, and so now we're raising our family here. So before I started my media career, I spent 12 years in corporate, doing a various amount of things. But my exit from corporate was more so really for my own mental health because I just knew that it just was time, and I wanted to leave on my own terms.
Mm.
But when I did that, I had no plan, which is not like me. I've been working since I was 17 years old, and all I've known is you work. You find something to do, but you work. So this was like an out of body experience. I had never done anything so impulsive before. But I just trusted God, and I was just like, you know where I am, and you know what's happening with me, and I know you got me. So I did take some time off work, um, just focused on me, focused on my health, focused on just getting myself together, really, so I could be the best me, but then also the best wife and the best
Mhm.
parent to my kiddos because I have three. So that was important to me. So I took some time off from work, and in that time off, I was just exploring different things that I really wanted to do. I knew that I love pop culture and wanted to do something in the media space, but I didn't know what that could be.
Mm.
So I went back to university to take some classes in broadcast journalism. Well, really, it was at PR initially. But in my journey of just taking some classes, just kind of learning about journalism and what it was all about, I met my former boss, who was like, "Hey, if you ever want to come to the news station, let me know. I'll give you a tour." So I was like, "Okay, what can that be?"
Right.
I wasn't looking for a job. I was just like, I was just curious at the time. So he was like, "Hey, I actually have a job opening. It's part time, and it's for a web producer. So you would write web articles for us, and do some social media." The first time around, I was like, "No," because I just stopped working, and I'm in a really good place. I don't want to go back to work right now. Like I'm good. I enjoy sleeping in, and again, I have three kiddos, and at the time, my youngest was like 3 or 4. Like he was
Mm,
young. He was
yeah.
at the daycare. So I was like, you know what? No, I'm really enjoying like not working. I drop him off. I go to my spin class. I'm like a woman of leisure right now. Like I don't want to work. But I ended up running into him again like 6 months later. And he was like, "Hey, I got that job opening still." So I was like, okay, I am ready to go back to work. So initially, when I started working at the station, it wasn't an on air position at all. It was more so just about me learning more about communications
Mm,
and learning how to write web articles. And then social media um, was, for at least for us at the station, was just kind of like on the cusp of being
mm-hmm.
something. So he was like, "Hey, you'll work in the morning. We have morning show guests. I want you to take pictures and put them on, our social media." So I was like, "Okay, cool. I love that. I can do that." So, and that was fun. I had to wake up very early, but it was really, really fun. Like I got to meet the one first year I started working there, I think it was 2016. That was the year that Savvy Shields from Arkansas, she became Miss America that year. So I got to meet her.
Yeah.
She came in studio. There were a couple people from Arkansas who were competing on like The Voice and American Idol. So they used to come by the station. So it was really, really fun. And I was like, I'm really enjoying this piece. Like I was great, like where I was. Like I was enjoying writing web articles. And I was also enjoying helping the station grow its social
Mm-hmm.
media. So from there, I was kind of like, okay, I like this piece, right? Not really thinking past that much, but I like to give credit to um, really just connections and not knowing when people are having a conversation about you. And my boss came to me and was like, "Hey, we're kind of wanting to shake up the morning show a little bit. Do you want to come on air?" And I was like, "What?"
So your goal wasn't even to be on air.
It wasn't like in the back of my mind, because I used to watch all the pop culture programs, E News, and all those things. And I was like, I can totally do that, but had no idea how to do
Mm-hmm.
these things. And it was just one of those things like, oh, I would love to do that, whatever, but really wasn't making any strides to do
Right.
it. Again, social media was just kind of like on the cusp of like being something to where you can get on there and post things and people would notice you.
Right.
So I got on air initially just because I was just talking about like pop culture and, what were the trending things and fun things that are happening. But then I think we realized that the newscast can only do so much. For the morning show, we have 3 hours, but that's all mostly news, like, who got arrested, what are kind of like the
Mm-hmm.
top headlines. So there's only so much to really fit in those community needs, which is who's having an event or, for instance, oh, Tanitra is doing this great activity here in the community. There's really not space
Right.
for that in a formal newscast. So our GM was like, "Hey, we are wanting to kick off this show, lifestyle show. Would you host it?" And again, I'm like, me? Oh, me? Okay. Um, sure, totally. Not knowing what that meant. We had not done that before at the station, or really knowing what the expectations were going into it. We just knew that we were supposed to be talking about like events happening in the
Mm-hmm.
so the show is 5 years old. And it's been a really, really great ride. It's really allowed me to meet a lot of people in the community, but also I feel like it's helped deepen my connection to Northwest Arkansas, which has been really, really great because we are raising our family here. And so I think it's important for
Mm-hmm.
me to know as many people, to know really what's happening so that I
Yeah.
can be a really good like steward and ambassador for our community.
Good. Now, as a public figure, there's some cool things that come along with that, knowing and getting to see a lot of people, but there's also sometimes people don't always know how to set the boundaries of, hey, she's out with her family, maybe I don't want to go up and say anything. How do you maintain the boundaries, healthy boundaries, when it comes to kind of what you allow the public to see and know about you and the private life of Jackie, you know?
That's actually a really good question. But you know what? I don't feel like I have to do a lot of like hiding.
Hmm.
Because our community is kind of small, but also we don't have as many eyes on the show like as like the
Hmm.
evening newscast. Like they have probably a different kind of interaction with the public than I do. Like, people, because I wear wigs at work. I literally would take my wig off, take my eyelashes off, and I just walk around town. And people will never know, and that's like
You're
nice.
Superman.
Or people will say, "You look familiar," and I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "This is the real me." Like yesterday, I was dropping off my kids' cello, and I saw a lady, and she was like, "Oh, you always look so nice at work," and I was like, "Yes, this is the real me." I had on a
At
sweatshirt
work. That's so
and
funny.
shorts and like no makeup or anything. But honestly, that's the Jackie that I want people to know because I'm really just like a regular person, and I never want to seem like I'm
Hmm.
not approachable. So for me, I don't really have kind of like those lines that I need to blur because I'm not really trying to hide anything. Like if you follow me on social media, I'm mainly active on Instagram. Like I don't have a problem letting people into my life
Hmm.
because I don't feel like I'm doing anything where I need to hide. If anything, I'm just trying to show people that I'm just like a
Right.
regular person, just like them.
Right.
And if I'm struggling on something, maybe you can help me, or maybe if you're struggling
Right.
on something, maybe I can inspire you. So um I try to be a good steward as to what I'm putting out there. I mean, I don't put everything out there because I don't really want to, but I also don't feel like I have a lot to really hide or shield.
Right. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So I want to talk about, obviously this is Minding My Mental Health. And again, my goal with this broadcast is to bring awareness and just talk about how we can be a better um, community through
Hmm.
taking care of our mental health. And as I was preparing for this, I was looking up some stuff and it said that 1/3 of journalists surveyed in some survey that they did talked about dealing with moderate to severe depression. And
Hmm.
it said nearly half of those, so about 46% did not receive any type of therapy for it. And then out of the ones that did receive therapy, I think they said 60% said um, that their depression, anxiety came directly as a result of their job. And you and I
Sure.
were talking before we started the actual interview just about where you live obviously has an impact on what you're reporting, right? um, but can you speak to how journalists are prepared, or how
Mm,
how it is in that space to talk about, hey, maybe covering that story was a lot. Maybe you want to have some
hmm.
space, or is that even talked about or dealt with in that realm?
I feel like over the past couple of years, people have really been a lot more open about what they're experiencing on the job. I know for us, like I'm in a Facebook group of Black women that are journalists, and
I'm
that's
gonna
just
need you to share this to this group, ma'am.
that's it's a really safe space for people to be like,
Mhm.
y'all, I'm struggling. So I do feel like people are a lot more open to talk about what they're going through because they're seeing other people who are like, okay, like I thought I was the only one, and they're realizing that they are not alone in those things. Um, I'm not sure, like, so from a curriculum standpoint, are those things really taught in college? No, I think that those things come when you are actually on the job and you're working.
Mhm.
And I think it's really important for wherever you work that you do establish a community. And I would say for where we are at my station, we do try to have a really great community of the journalists of color because Northwest Arkansas, there we only make up 2% of Northwest Arkansas people, of Black people, right? 2%. Now, Nisha, when we were here in college, it was way higher than that. And I mean, even the university has seen like a dip,
Mhm.
students. And it is hard. It is just hard, period, just to be a journalist in a new city. But it's even harder to be a Black one because you just don't know a lot of people. And then there's not a lot of us, right? So I think it's really important to just establish a community on where you are. And I think there's been a lot more open talk about, hey, if you are really struggling, like, I know somebody, like, here's like
Yeah.
a
So
card,
it's not so much in the industry, but more like the networking of
Yes.
your people that you connect with.
Yes. And I feel like in the industry too, a lot of people are talking more about it. Like I've seen
Hmm.
several people, you and I talked about this before we started. I've seen several people who have been like, I've had enough. And to your point, the city that you're in can, I feel like, really impact what's happening with you. Bigger cities, there's going to be, a lot more people, it could be a lot more crime, and if that's what you are covering every day, a lot of that you are just taking into your spirit and taking that home with you.
Yeah.
That could be hard to decompress. I would say one thing for what I do every day is I do a lot of like the fun and uplifting stuff, but even that has a flip side. When we were filming during the pandemic, we didn't have any guests in studio. So it's
Hmm.
just myself and my co host in studio by ourselves. But the pressure I felt to keep everybody else happy during the
Mm.
pandemic was rough. Because it
I
was
didn't
like,
think about that.
I, my job is to talk about things that are happening, and everybody's struggling. But I'm struggling because my job is to keep things light. And that was really hard for me. I watch Christmas movies all the time because they make me happy. That's just the space I live in. Like, I think during that time, really, I just needed something happy because even though I'm talking about like fun things that are happening in the community, the pressure to always be on all the
Hmm.
time, it just kind of took a toll on me. So I found myself watching a lot of Christmas movies because they make me happy. But then also too, I just found myself like, okay, what do I need for me and how can I kind of step back when I need to?
Hmm.
I mean, full transparency, I don't have a therapist. I have a best friend who is a therapist, so I probably abuse that relationship a lot. Um, but I do feel like I do a lot of wellness things, like I do yoga,
Hmm.
and I've really found peace and just kind of like quiet. Like right now, I'm home alone, which is really nice because once everybody gets home, it's I need this and this and
Yep.
this. Can you sign this? And so I'm really just trying to find like those really small pockets of peace, like right now,
Yeah.
that are really, really important. And so, like, whatever those things are, for you, I feel like those are important to identify.
No, I agree. And so I want to kind of go back because I think sometimes people, when they hear stuff like this and they think, oh, this is just about journalists, but I want people to understand how it impacts all of us. And a couple of things you said was finding something that still allows you to kind of unwind and not be so stressed. So if you're in a situation where you're
Mhm.
always stressed, find that little pocket of, hey, I'm gonna watch this movie because at the end, this girl that was from a small town that moved to New York and came back to the small town and fell in love with this guy, they are gonna work out and it's gonna
That's
be
right.
beautiful, right? And so when you start to do that, it puts you in a good frame of mind. But you brought up something that I hadn't really thought about, the pressure, because I'm thinking coming from the perspective of people reporting on the trauma and that being so difficult. But even though you took a path where your show is more, upbeat and
Right.
light, there was that pressure for you during the pandemic. I have to keep people quote unquote happy, and that's a lot, especially in 2020 was hard
Yeah.
for the world. And I said that even as a therapist, I was like, people would come in and I go, you're watching the same protest and racial injustices that I'm watching. And I'm hearing about your anxiety. And I'm like, it was a difficult time for
Mhm.
everybody. Just as a mom during that time, how did you keep your peace and then go and, kind of keep that happy place for everybody else?
Yeah, I think we all were trying to figure out like what are some things we could do? I think we all felt like we had to get creative. I know for us, we did a lot of board games because initially, when everything first happened in the pandemic, like for us in Arkansas, the kids went on spring break and did go back to school.
Hmm.
So we had to get creative, right? So we were like playing board games, and we hadn't played board games in forever. So, we're getting creative. What are those things that we can do as a family? Is it just, okay, y'all go outside, go up front? We did a lot of like chalk art just to be outside. We definitely got creative, especially like when everything first shut down because you're just navigating the unknowns, right? So, a lot of just creativity, being outside,
Hmm.
doing things as a family. But I think too, one thing that helped us is just having each other and faith. Lot
Mhm.
a lot of prayer. And I know a lot of people probably leaned on God because it was like, Lord, what is happening? The unknown is very
Yeah.
scary, and only you know kind of what's on the other side of this. And so it's like, Lord, I hope you got me because I'm struggling. Like, but the pressure that I talked about just to make everybody happy, it was a lot. And I had to take a step back too and think like there were so many things happening. Like to your point, there were so many protests, and I was really feeling like, man, am I safe? Are my kiddos
Mhm.
safe? What can I do to really kind of shine a light on, even though all of this is happening, there is some light. So in that, it was like a twofold. It was not so much about making other people happy, it was about what can I do to impact the community that I live in.
Yes.
What's something that I can do. So I know during that time I had like a franchise, and I did it for about a year. It was called Voices of Courage, and I just had conversations with people and really highlighted people in our community of color
Mhm.
who were really doing amazing things. Because my idea was, if people are watching the news and they see people on the news, if they see them like on the street, they're like, oh, I saw you on the news, so that makes you safe, you know what I mean?
Mm.
So if I'm seeing more people of color on TV, then they're safe.
In a
Even
positive
though,
light.
correct, even though like these people have been doing all these amazing things for years, right? So I said, I feel like that's something that I can help give back and maybe
Mhm.
flip the script a little bit and really find these people who are really doing the hard work. I'm
Yeah.
just doing the platform, but they're really doing that legwork, and that really was really fulfilling for me, because it really helped me figure out like what more did I want
Mm.
out of my career as well, because you get to a certain point and you're loving what you do, but then it's like, what else can I do? How can
Mhm.
I elevate what I'm doing now? And so doing those stories, highlighting people in the community, like we have a um, assistant principal at one of the high schools. He's a West Point grad, you know what I mean? And we highlighted a guy, Anthony Ball, who's been in our community for forever, but also, he's doing Funk Factory, and now, he's opening up the Music Depot. So he's really in that vein and space of bringing Black music here to Northwest Arkansas and even to our
Mhm.
students. I talked to an artist, who was doing, her mission was just to kind of spread love just with her words, but then her
Yeah.
work was getting defaced every time that
Oh,
she would
wow.
put something up. And so it's like, how do you keep going? Because,
Mhm.
we're out here struggling, but here you are trying to send a message of love that you have to keep doing it because people are being disrespectful and
Yeah.
just humans. So just talking to just different people in the community was really uplifting for me and very healing,
Mhm.
because it was like, let me lean on you. Let some of your goodness,
Right.
rub off on me.
What I heard you say, Jackie, was I didn't. And again, I'm always trying to help people to see how to translate, right? One of the things I heard you say was, even though there may be some negative things going around, you took the approach of an empowerment approach of what can I do? What's within my sphere of influence, as opposed to sitting around complaining about how bad things were. You said, yes, things are negative, or there are negative things. However, I'm going
Hmm.
to look at what I can do to make this better. Has there been a story that you had to cover that really shook you? Like you went home
Mm.
and just like, "Ooh, that was hard," or an event that really shook you?
Oh, that's a good one. Man, I've done so many, I feel like, stories. Oh, that's a good one. I don't know if I have one off the cuff. Oof. I don't know if I have one that just like really sticks out. I'm
Mhm.
trying to run through those stories that I did. Oh, that's a good one. Let me think about that one.
Okay.
Come back.
And so what about something that really inspired you or motivated you and made you
Mm.
say, "I'm ready to do something like you were talking about that
Mhm.
artist, from those interviews or having an interaction with someone that
Mhm.
made you go, okay, I'm going to stop doing this and start doing this, or I'm going to, really inspired you. What about that?
Yeah, I think my faith really just was tested a lot, and I always try to approach things from love. I remember I made a post once, and I had these earrings and they just had the word love on them. And I said, that's our charge. Our charge is to
Hmm.
love. It's not to judge. Because I do spend a lot of time on social media just for work and stuff, but there was a lot of, finger pointing and you doing this and blah 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 and all, and it was just
Yeah.
like our charge really is to love. And I felt like that piece was really, really missing. And I feel like a lot of that inspiration just came from wanting to approach things with love. We don't always have to
Hmm.
agree, but I do want to approach you and anybody with love. And
Right.
so how can I show people kind of that side? Um, no matter what you thought, you can not agree with the story or whatever, but I want you to always know and feel that it came from a place of love.
Hmm.
And that's just kind of how I like to approach things, because at the end of the day, that's really it. We are not here to judge. Only really God can judge us. Our charge is to love, and it's hard. It's real hard. It is not easy. That is a tough charge to do. But that's kind of my approach, is just the love piece.
Yeah. So you mentioned it a little earlier about not having a lot of African Americans in the area where you are,
Hmm.
just by itself, but also there are not a lot of African Americans on air. Even in 2023, it's still not just an abundance of you know African American representation on air.
Hmm.
I've seen several clips where people will come and it's like a big deal. They'll put it on TikTok where this lady has her natural hair out, or she's
Hmm.
got braids, or something like that, which says if we're still having to celebrate the fact that it's still an issue, right? How has it been for you being a Black woman, um, again, in this space, but also in that space in Northwest Arkansas? So kind of a twofold, the in general media and then more specifically Northwest Arkansas.
The discussion around natural hair, I think it's been really, really great and really, really explosive within the community. Again, in our Facebook group, a lot of ladies ask all the time, like, "Hey, okay, I'm ready to approach my boss because I'm trying to switch my hair. Like, I want braids and stuff like that." And it is a huge supportive community. I feel like the discussions around natural hair have been really, really great, and reception has been really, really positive. So I
Hmm.
follow a lot of Black women on air in different cities, and they wear their hair however they want. So I feel like there's been a lot of positive movement
Yeah.
towards that. Sometimes people, sometimes viewers will comment and say whatever they need to say, but anybody can be a keyboard gangster. You know what I
Right.
mean? But I mean, it's all about how you feel. For me, I wear my hair in a wig. That's just my own choice, because I'm up really early and I just don't want to maintain my own natural hair in the morning, because it don't always act right. But I do
Understood.
have moments where the wig not wigged, and I'm like, okay, y'all getting this natural hair today. I mean, but it's just hair,
Hmm.
and I'm hoping in my mind that people are just like, okay, because it's not this, it's just what I'm delivering. So I'm
Right.
hoping that people are just more so listening and watching about what I'm saying, versus if I got my natural hair out today versus if I have my wig on today. We do have several ladies at the station in braids, in wigs, natural hair. So, you know, the movement has been very positive. There's one girl I follow, Tashara Parker in Texas. She has been such a icon, and she's been doing some great work in Texas around natural hair. Like, she's even gone to like their legislation and talked about the
Mm.
Brown Act. So I mean, you have some ladies who are like boots on the ground, like for real, because this is like ridiculous. All we're trying to do is do our job, but also don't police my hair, because it's like
Are
it's
there
ridiculous at the end of the day.
guidelines as to how you're supposed to wear it in a lot of places? Jackie, tell us more about like.
There could be. So I mean, overarching, right? TV, you're supposed to like, oh, look nice, whatever. Do some stations have a guideline? Maybe. We don't really have one. But for all women, which is weird, for all of us on air, I will say, if we're wanting to change things up, we do have to have a conversation like, hey, okay, here, this is what I'm thinking.
Mm,
We roll with this or no. Some of it is because, oh, did I just take like a new headshot and that's what the station is using for
right.
promotions and stuff like that. So we do go and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Like when I got a new wig, I was like, it's time for a new wig. Here's the new one. I have not been met with, no, you shouldn't, or no, not the right time. I did color it once, and that was
Mm,
like, it looks great, but can you just tell us next time? That was a few years ago. But I don't really, I feel like I'm not being told like, no, you can't do dot dot dot.
mm-hmm.
Are some stations stricter? Maybe there could be, there
Yeah.
could be some. We need you to look this way, or no, I don't like the natural hair. But I just think you have to advocate for you and what makes you feel good at the end of the day.
Now, you told me that you are part of a Facebook group with Black journalists. What are the things, because I'm part of a Facebook group with Black therapists, right? What are the things that you hear a lot about in that space where it's like, this is supposed to be our safe place to
Hmm.
just share our concerns? What are some of those concerns from a mental health perspective of like, I'm hearing a lot of women say this, or I'm hearing a lot of people really have to struggle with this. What are you seeing and hearing in those spaces?
Um, Pay, so salary, opportunities. Hey, I'm ready to move up. Like, I'm a reporter, but now I'm ready to really make that jump and, anchor, but I'm not getting those opportunities. Like what, advice do you all have? Or hey, I'm ready to kind of switch markets. Um, what would y'all recommend? Or it's time for me to renegotiate my contract. How do I go about, negotiating? Or, do you all have agents? I'm looking. So it's more so things around that. But I do see a lot of opportunity issues and pay.
Is that, are they equating that or relating that to race, or is it just, hey, everybody wants to move up in their
Hmm.
company, or is it like, I feel like I'm not getting these opportunities because of my
Uh,
skin, or is it a broader issue, or is it more like, no, this is actually, I'm more qualified than this other person kind of thing?
I do feel like most of it, I mean, when you're talking about opportunity, it is related to like race, because sometimes
Mm.
a lot of us are operating, we're the only ones there, or there's not a lot of us there. So I do feel like when we're talking about opportunity, some of it is like, is this got my brown? Because like I'm outpacing this person, or I've been here longer,
Hmm.
than this person, or I asked and was told no, but then this person, you know what I mean? So there are some conversations around that in the group.
Emotionally, what kind of toll does that take on you to
Oof.
know? And now, and again, it may not be directly your experience, because it sounds like you have a pretty, like, progressive environment. But what kind of toll are you seeing in the group, or just colleagues, that it can start to take emotionally on people?
I think that people are getting to the point, well, they feel very supported when they say, hey, I've had enough and I'm ready to go.
Hmm.
So people are feeling a lot more supported when it's time, when they decide for them that it's time to
Yeah.
maybe make a different decision for them. Um, but also I feel like for me, I mean, I wouldn't say where we are is like super progressive. I will just say that because of groups like the one I'm in on Facebook, and because I have some really, really great friends who have been in the business for a long time,
Hmm.
it's giving me a lot of confidence to ask for what I wanted. Like
Mm.
you and I talked before the broadcast, and he was like, "Oh, did you move stations?" I was like, "No, I was able to fill in."
Right.
I've been on air for 5 years, and this past, I guess it was last month, was the first time that I filled in anchoring. But that's because I was like, "Listen, heard you looking for some help."
Mm.
And that was even a lot for me to do because I've been wanting to do it, but I was just too scared and too nervous to ask. But
Mm.
because of those groups that I'm in Facebook and just my own like personal set of friends, it just gave me the confidence to just ask. So I was just like, you know what? Let me just, what can it hurt, right?
Right. If they say no, okay.
Right. What can it hurt? And then I was able to do it like twice. So I was like, who who knew? Just asking. You know what I mean?
So if you're watching this, go ahead and put that in the comment. I have to be assertive, and I think that's again another one of those broader aspects of a lot of times we are overlooked in situations, but sometimes it's because we don't ask,
Mm-hmm.
or we don't step up and say, "Hey, Lauren Simone says I'm proud of you, Jackie," or
Thank
actually she puts her whole name, but
you.
because it is important that we make that a priority. Our success has to be something, and as Black women, oftentimes I think we downplay our education. We're the highest educated group in the US, but we oftentimes don't go for the promotion. We don't do that because we make assumptions, or sometimes there may be some valid overlooking and discrimination or all of those things, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't advocate for ourselves. So I
Yes.
I really love that aspect. I want to hear, Jackie, you talk about any situations that you've had to deal with mental health, and that could be anything from
Mhm.
anxiety, depression, um, self-esteem stuff, whatever. How have you dealt with it, and how did you kind of work through those things, or
Sure.
whatever?
I would say I do have some anxiety.
Hmm.
A lot of it is just because, the earth has been earthing. Things have been happening, right? So there are certain situations that make me kind of like, uh, I'm out. One of them is like this, right? Just because, then I got to talk and about me, and it's just like, I don't,
I
okay.
appreciate you so much.
Uh, but I will tell you, I feel like a lot of, for me, what I try to focus on when it comes just to my own like mental health and what's going to serve me are things. I start there. How is this going to serve me? But then also, how is this going to serve other people? So I want to make
Hmm.
sure that it's like a twofold. I don't want it to be all about me. I'm just hoping that maybe sharing a little bit helps somebody else.
Right.
To your point about like advocating for yourself, a lot of things that I struggle with is I'm older. I'm not a spring chicken. And a lot of, the journalists and stuff that are coming in, they're young, they're talented. And I mean, they could easily do what I do, right?
Hmm.
Um, that right there just gives me a lot of like anxiety, like, man, am I too old to be doing this?
Mm.
And I think that too, when I was advocating for myself, it was more so like, this could be my last chance because I'm getting up there. So it's like, let me go on and try before I, dip on out before the young people
Oh
come
my
in.
gosh.
So that is something that I do struggle with, just kind of the age thing. It's nothing that anybody has said to me. It's just because you just notice, people are um, young and they're talented. And I know, like, in my mind, when I was growing up, I love Cheryl Burton. Growing up, I watched her. I think she was on Channel 7 back in Chicago. And I remember Cheryl. Cheryl was on the desk like most of my life. And I'm thinking like, am I going to be able to have a career like Cheryl when I'm on
Mm.
air for like 20 something years? Lord willing, I would love to be, but I also understand that that just may not be. And that kind of just, that makes me nervous and scared. But also I just hope that whatever time I'm allotted, that I've served the purpose of
Yeah.
just being able to shine a light on our community and be a really good ambassador. What I'm really trying to focus on now is like just overall wellness. You know, I'm getting up there in age. There's nothing I can do about that. But what
I
I
want you to
want
stop
to
acting
do,
like you
I
80,
am.
Jackie.
I
I,
mean,
I want you to.
listen,
I want you to stop acting because I'm
I'm
getting on
feeling
up
it.
there.
I'm feeling it.
You are just acting like you are literally.
Listen, listen. I just had a birthday, so I just turned 44. I have an 18-year-old, y'all, which is a wild. Like, I have an 18-year-old. He's a senior, and I'm just like really reflective because I'm like, how did we get here? But one thing that I'm trying to do is just make sure I take care of me, even in those days
Mhm.
where I don't feel like it. Because there are some days I just don't feel
Yeah.
like. feel like doing anything. But what are the small things that can just get me through? I was
Yeah.
talking to a group of students, single parents, and my message to them was just like finding the joy in the small things. And the small things, those are the things that really help me and get me through the day. It could be I got up and had my coffee. It could be I got up today and did yoga, even though I didn't want to. It could be I watched a Christmas movie today. But what are those small things
Hmm.
that really help power you to get you through the day? And I just really hold on like super tight depth grip on these things just to kind of help some days.
So you brought up something that I hadn't really thought much about. The industry is very much, um, I say very much, I don't know, I'm not a part of the industry, but it seems, appearance is obviously really important. So
Right.
younger, fresh face, that kind of thing. But then you have the experienced, whatever. Is there, or how have you seen insecurities play out? Not necessarily with you, but just
Hmm.
in the, uh-oh, this younger person's coming. This older anchor may start being shady, or how have you seen those? Because those to me are mental health issues. When you start
Hmm.
to feel this, or sometimes it may be, oh my gosh, I've had people, again, I've had clients who were anchors or whatever, and they may say someone really took me under their wing. And so, like, are you seeing more of the older anchors? And by older, I do not mean you, ma'am. Um, taking those people that say, these people really took us under their wing and
Hmm.
helped us to grow, as opposed to these people who saw us as a threat. How have you seen that kind of
Yeah.
dynamic play out?
I've seen a lot of support
Good.
because really at the end of the day, we all just trying to do our best.
Hmm.
So I have seen a lot of support because we know at any point, like, most journalists are, we're contractually bound for however long. But I've also seen to where it's like you are under contract and we're gonna pay you up until your contract that ends in 6 months, but you can leave today. You
Ooh.
know what I mean? So I mean, it's cold out there. It's cold out there, but I have seen a lot of support, and I will say I think that is important too, because I know I said earlier, really trying to find community at work is important, but also outside of work, because when I leave here,
Hmm.
what am I doing? All this.
Uh-oh.
Um, if I've built all this feel good community at work, when I leave, what do I don't have anything.
Hmm.
So really, what are you doing outside of work as well? That's important. I feel like that's important anywhere you are. You're gonna have those people at work who are gonna be like your people, your village, because you're there most of the day, right?
Right.
But when you leave work, you need something else to do too,
Hmm.
because what else do you have going on? And you have to be able to turn your work switch off too. Like I've tried to tell, like we were traveling one time, my friend was asking me, like, well, how was work? I said, girl, it's the weekend. I
You
can't I
have
can't
that
talk about work.
boundary.
I cannot talk about work on the weekend because I gotta turn it off. Like
Hmm.
I only get 2 days, Saturday and
Right.
Sunday. And half a Sunday, I'm preparing for Monday, try to get my mind right.
So I interviewed, I don't know if you know Keyshawn Henry. You probably do.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So I interviewed Keyshawn and she talked about kind of mental health in the corporate space. And then last week I had a lady, Adrian, and she was talking about, she's a beautician. So again, I do these every week. Are you with me? And she was
Uh-huh.
saying, I don't want to talk about hair when I'm not in place. And that's kind of what I hear you saying. And Keyshawn was saying when I interviewed her, she was like, you have to recognize that your work people are for work, and it's important that you do have that. So again, across these various industries, we're hearing you have to be able to separate your work
Absolutely.
life from your personal life, and and it doesn't mean we can't get along with and have
Right.
a community within our workforce, but we also need that place where we can go and say, with or without this job, I still have a healthy support system.
Right.
Tell me how your support system, speaking of, has been instrumental in you staying in a healthy place
Hmm.
mentally.
Well, first of all, I have to thank. I got a village, and so thank y'all for my for taking my text messages all hours of the night. But for me, community has always been big. I'm a very feely person. So I thrive and lean on people a lot,
Hmm.
especially when, I'm having those low days, but even when I'm having those high days, because I want to be able to share those
Right.
wins as well. And so I do have a community of, like, I've got my friends that I've had forever, then I've got my work people, and then I've got people who have, like, they're not my, we don't work together anymore, but they're still my village,
Hmm.
because you do make those connections at
Right.
work. People leave and go different routes all the time. But to be able to still have that connection is really important to me too. So I kind of, I have those too. But it's been really important and instrumental, because we all just need a safe space to be able to say, okay, listen, is this a safe space? Because this is what I got to
Hmm.
say. But you have to pick those spaces. You have to be careful about the spaces that you pick, though.
Oh yeah.
And you have to be careful about leaving paper trails. So sometimes I may call somebody because I don't want the paper trail, right? Um, but my village is, it's really important to me, and I feel like it's important to everybody, because we all just need somebody to talk to. I may not be struggling, like, with mental health issues today, but maybe
Hmm.
I just need to vent and figure
Right.
some things out. Like, I've got this thought in my head, but I can't figure out how to verbalize it. So, let me call Nietzsche and be like, okay, girl, how do I say this correctly?
Right. So again, you said community is really important, being able to get all of that stuff out. What happens when your kids are being kids? Yeah, exactly. And maybe your husband is having his moment, and things are kind of crazy at home.
Yeah.
How do you say, I need to, you talked about your pockets of peace when it feels chaotic at home?
Hmm.
How are you able to say, I just leave the house? What do you do to find that kind of like woosah
Yeah.
moment?
Yeah. There has been some, I'll be right back, y'all. I'll be right, just I'll be right back. Just give me 10 minutes and I'll be right back. Where you going? Don't worry about it. I'll be back. You taking your phone? Nope. I'll be I'll be back, right? My husband always says pick your battles. And I know a lot of people say that, but he says that all the time. And when I'm there, when I'm just like, this is going nonstop, I really have to internalize and
Hmm.
pick which battle am I gonna have. Um, Whatever I'm feeling, is it worth unleashing what I'm really feeling on the inside? Or do I really need to draw in and go someplace else and just really think through whatever's happening,
Hmm.
and then come back and have a conversation? As a parent, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a strict parent. And so it's really hard for me to keep things in, because that's not how I was parented. Like, my mom said what needed to be said, but I don't. Um, and it's just because my kids don't need that kind of parent. They just
Hmm.
need a more understanding parent, which is fine, but to me that's unnatural. So when I get there, I'm like, let me think through. Like, I'm not impulsive in things that I say. I have to really think about it, because I'm thinking about delivery and intention, and I want those to be married, because I don't want
Hmm.
you to misunderstand what I'm saying. So I really try to be intentional about what I say, but I do have to kind of step back sometimes. And honestly, for some, it may seem a little like standoffish, but it's really not that. I'm just trying to make sure that what I say is what I mean, but also I'm trying to deliver it in a way where I don't have to backtrack and be like, I'm sorry about my delivery. It happens sometimes where I do have to backtrack,
Yeah.
but I do try to pick my battle and which approach I'm going to take. Like, if I'm going there, I'm going there. But I do a lot of pulling back and just thinking first before I react.
No, I think that's important because listen, some of the stuff I want to say.
And I've said them in my mind, I've said it in my mind. And sometimes I find peace with that. I'm like, in my mind, I'm really like, we are really having it out right now. But my delivery wasn't that. But just know, in my mind, we was going toe to toe.
Now you said your oldest is 18. How old are your other two?
18, 16, and 11.
So how has this journey with you being a public figure impacted your children?
You know what? I I think to them I'm just their mom, and I'm happy about that. Sometimes
Yeah.
their friends that say, "Oh, I saw your mom on TV," and they're just like, "She's just my mom."
Yeah.
Like
Not a
yeah,
big deal, huh? Yeah.
they don't, and I'm actually happy for that because I want them to have some normalcy too. Like
Hmm.
they're going through their own things, like teenagers are raising teenagers is rough. And I will tell you, like we've been able to explore like their own mental health and their journey and assessing what they need for their individual kind of needs,
Hmm.
which has been really important. It's a tough journey, but we're navigating that too. But I'm just their mom.
Yeah.
They just
So
like
so
I said.
let's talk about that for a minute, Jack. I know we're almost done, but how do you look at your child and say, "Oh, I think it's time for some counseling," or "I think it's
Mhm.
time for to get them in this or that."
Mhm.
Like as a parent, what do you kind of use as a gauge to say,
Mhm.
because we look at things and we're like, yeah, I think we need to do this or do that, or we need to stop doing this. How do you
Right.
make that assessment or that
Yeah. I think as
determination?
parents, you know your kids, you know them. And one thing I will say is I feel like the generation of parents that we are much more open to having those conversations than what we were raised as.
Hmm.
Like therapy. We didn't do that. You talk to your pastor maybe, or maybe not, or you can talk to anybody. But I like to think that this generation of parents, we're just a lot more open to talk about that. But your children, when something isn't right. And I think being able to look at them and say something's not right. I mean, I like to think that I'm not a real mom, I'm a cool mom, but I am their parent. And so they're
Hmm.
not, even if I say, and I have said, hey, you can talk to me about anything, I'm still their mom, and they're not gonna do that. Like, I'm not gonna talk to you about this. So just being able to let them know, hey, if you need to talk to somebody,
Hmm.
let's talk to somebody. And I think just saying that to them helps them decide if they feel like, yeah, I do think I need to. Because I could be here all day, I can hold them, I could love on them all day long. But there are just some things internally that kiddos feel and are going through that they just don't want to talk to us as parents about, but they need to talk to somebody else about to maybe help them talk to us about a little bit more,
Hmm.
to verbalize. Because a lot of times it's just I don't have the words on what I'm feeling a lot, but I just don't know how to verbalize that. And as a parent,
Hmm.
I'm not a mental health professional um to help you, with those tools to be consistent. So I think just even offering that to your children, again, you know them and you know if something is off. It
Yeah.
Their mental health journey doesn't have to be something that's permanent. It could be like maybe you do send them to a therapist maybe once or twice and they get to say the words that they need to say, or maybe you do realize like this may be a longer journey than I thought it was. But I
Hmm.
think the initial offer and say, hey, if
Yeah.
you need to, I think it's important.
Yeah, I actually worked with a young lady, and her mom said, I think it made a big difference that I took it seriously and
Mhm.
actually got her a like a real counselor. We did not meet, oh man, maybe a couple months. And I don't even think it was every week. It was a few times that I met with this young lady. And her mom was like, I really think, I mean, obviously the work we did in therapy was beneficial, but also the idea of
Mm,
my mom didn't just dismiss my feelings, and my mom didn't she wasn't afraid to say what I may say in therapy, or because it's like mom yells at me, or those types of things. And
right.
sometimes parents are afraid of what their kids may say in therapy,
Yes.
and it's like
Yes.
what's best for your kid. And usually, as a trained professional, I'm not, if your child came in and said you yell at them, I'm not judging you for yelling, because I'm like, baby, I understand, because it gets to that place sometimes, right? And we have to learn and grow as parents as well. And so I always encourage parents to be open and honest about, hey, this may be something that, even if I could help, if I can't because they won't open up to me, or
Yeah.
maybe I can't, maybe it's outside of my scope of knowledge. Let me get a professional and take that seriously, because just taking it seriously can also be a huge, door
Yeah.
open for kids.
And I think for parents it's hard because we want to think that our kids will tell us everything, and we're great. We have a great, our family is great, but sometimes again, you can be doing all those right things
Mhm.
in your mind, but some things are very scary for kids to
Mhm.
vocalize and stuff, and they do need somebody else to kind of channel that through, and then that person will serve as a mediator to kind of bring you all closer. So I do think, just to your point, like taking it seriously, like, okay, my parents did take it seriously, but also at some point your children will leave you. They'll go off and be, their own
Right.
people and their own adults. And so if they've got those tools before
Right.
they leave your home, then that helps set them up for adulthood. So if they're struggling in adulthood, they know because they've already kind of been doing these things. Like, okay,
Mhm.
as a teenager I did see a therapist. Maybe as an adult now, because things are different, things are
I could
changing,
do that. Yeah.
I might need to still see somebody.
No, you're absolutely right, because I have people all the time come in and I go, "Is this your first time with therapy?" And they go, "No, I did it once when I was a teen when my parents got divorced. I did it once as a teen when this thing happened, and I
Yeah.
thought about it." And like literally they go, "I thought about it and that helped me then. So now I have this." The other thing you mentioned, and we'll wrap up at here. You mentioned feeling like I should have my kid can tell me everything.
Right.
Sometimes as parents, I think we get um a little caught up in, I have to be all of
Mm,
these things.
yes.
And that's number one, a lot of pressure for ourselves. But it's also very freeing to say, I don't have to have all the answers in the
Mm,
world. And if you feel like you are the only person that should have answers for your kid, there are some things that maybe you need to look at.
right.
Like, why do you feel like you have to be
Right. The
everything
person.
for your little ones, right? And so it's such a great opportunity for us to continue to learn, to grow. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank
How can
you.
people follow you and um, learn more about what you have going on?
I'm most active on Instagram. I'm the Jaclyn House on Instagram. I also have a LinkedIn as well, Jaclyn House on LinkedIn. So holler at me.
So, what are parting words for other journalists who may say, I'm not in a good spot,
Hmm.
emotionally, mentally, or I'm struggling with something right now? What would be Jackie's,
Mm.
words of wisdom as we
Yeah.
close?
I would just say take a self evaluation. If you are not the best person at work, then you're probably not the best person outside of work. So take a self evaluation of yourself, because what you present, you always want to be the best of you. And if you're not there, then it may be time to make a change. You know, maybe it's you need to talk to a professional like Nitra, or, maybe you need to find kind of your village and map out some things. If you
Mhm.
have a great relationship with your boss or manager, I mean, let's be honest here, like lay it out. Like, I'm not in the best place right now. They could offer some options as well. But again, if that's the relationship that you have,
Mhm.
with your boss as well. So really just take a self-evaluation to find out where you are mentally. Um, can you push through? If not, what are some things that you need to do to present the best possible you? Because listen, you will have this job, but if you passed away, they will replace you tomorrow. And they'll be like, "Oh, I miss you," but then so and so is new, they'll come up in here. So don't sacrifice yourself
Mhm.
for the job, because you only got one you. So the self-evaluation is important.
Thank you so much, Jackie. You
Thank
guys,
you.
everybody give a shout out to Jackie. Thank you, thank you,
Thank you.
thank you. You guys know every Thursday right here. We'll be back next week. Who are we talking to next week? What are we talking about next week? We are talking to a social worker next
Oh,
week. So it's
that's
going to
great.
get real interesting. Uh, so again, I want you guys to make sure. Thank you guys. Awesome job. Thank you, Latanya. Um, Thank you for watching. Join us back here for Minding My Mental Health every Thursday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. Even though we are ending this, make sure you tag and share this to groups that this would be beneficial for. Tag a friend, tag a family, because I don't think this is just for people in journalism. I think Jackie dropped a lot of nuggets and wisdom. So glean from this, share the broadcast. You guys know, if you are in a place where you say, I need some counseling, or I need some mindset coaching, I need any of that, reach out to me. If you need help with any of those things, we're here to help, because we want to, again, tear down that stigma of mental health treatment and be the best that we can be. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.